Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Hear from an Expert. I'm Leanne Taylor, the Sales Executive at Murdoch Webster, and I'm really excited to be here hosting some very special guests today. One of our favourite technology vendors is Palo Alto Networks. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that our online event is being hosted on the lands of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people, and I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. I'd also like to pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. We'll be diving into the world of network security today with our CTO, Chris Mearns, and getting the latest updates on our PAN firewall solutions with two of our favourite engineers. First, let me introduce Chris Mearns, our founder and CTO, with years of experience and unparalleled expertise. Chris has been the forefront of driving innovation within Murdoch Webster.
Hi guys, great to be here. So happy to see so many on the call. It's a really great turnout, so I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Alongside Chris, we have two brilliant minds from Palo Alto Networks, Jarman and Caleb Sirianni, who are here to shed some light on the exceptional partnership between both businesses, as well as some hot off the press updates from Palo Alto.
Thank you, Leanne. Hey, everyone. I definitely recognize some names on here, so nice to see some of you and nice to meet some people I haven't met before. It's great to be part of this webinar, and while I'm probably not supposed to have favorite partners, Murdoch Webster is certainly one of those. Anytime I'm working with them on an engagement with a customer, I know we're going to get the outcome that the customer needs, which is great. And it's just a testament to their commitment to us. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's right, Luke. Hi guys, it's nice to see you all. I'm looking forward to taking you through the latest advancements and updates to our firewall solutions so that you guys, our customers, can stay ahead of the curve.
Excellent, thanks guys. So let's get started. Over to you, Chris.
Yep, cool. Thanks, Leanne. Look, this is our quick agenda. I'll go through who Murdoch Webster is and why Murdoch Webster for Palo Alto very briefly before we get into the real experts in the call and give us some platform updates. One that I'm excited about is the AIOps and the new subscriptions. And then when we get to the end, we'll give you a bit of a call out to maybe take the ultimate test drive. So, okay, so for those who don't know me, and maybe a reminder for some who do, Murdoch Webster, we've been around now 17 years, or almost 17 years. And we primarily worked in the data center, so doing a lot of storage, network virtualization, top-of-rack switching, campus rollouts. And then we also worked a lot with UTM firewalls back in the day. So the likes of, you know, the old WatchGuards, I'm not even sure they're still around, I think they are. And we all know how good they worked back in the day, but being the technology company we are and always trying to look for, you know, disruptive technologies is going to help our customers and do things better. And we were introduced to Palo Alto Networks in late 2010. And when we saw the platform and how the next generation sort of way of doing firewalling was coming about with App ID and User ID, we knew that this was something we had to jump on, and it's proven to be the right decision for us. Almost 12 years ago. And when you consider that we've been in business for almost 17 years and we've partnered with Palo Alto Networks for 12 of those, I think that's testament to how innovative Palo Alto have been and how they're staying at the front of the market. So Palo Alto Networks, we're a Platinum Innovator partner in the partner program. Doesn't mean a lot to customers, but for us, it's just a way of us proving our worth. And even more so, the Certified Professional Services Partner Program, which we're very proud of because we're the only Certified Professional Services Partner Program for Palo Alto Network in Australia. It takes a lot to get this. We have to go through a lot of certifications. We have to prove our capability after every service engagement. Palo Alto Networks actually go and speak to our customers and do a survey on us, and we need to keep a certain score. Otherwise, we get hauled up in front of the principal, I guess, to have a please explain. But, you know, the guys that we've got are the top certified guys in Australia for deployments. So we're very proud of that. The Cyberforce is a interesting one because this is more for our pre-sales engineers. And what this does is it measures our pre-sales engineers against being able to get the requirements from our customers find out the outcomes that they want to achieve, and then they go away and they put together and architect a solution that's going to make sure that we not only get those outcomes, but we excel them. And as much as Cyberforce is probably not very well known in the marketplace, it is really important for Palo Alto Networks partners to be involved in this, because again, it just gives our customers peace of mind that the solutions we're putting forward have been tried and tested by our engineers. So again, just gives us some deep understanding and technical expertise. So that's pretty much Murdoch Webster in a nutshell, and our partnership with Palo Alto Networks. I think I'm handing over to Caleb first. So this is where Caleb's going to come into some platform updates and some AIOps updates, I think. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing that. And if you've got any questions, call them out, put them in the chat, try and make it as interactive if you can. That'll be great.
Cool. Thank you, Chris. See if I can share my screen. Or I'll need you to drop yours. Thank you. All right, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yep. Cool. Beauty. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris. And it's great to see so many familiar faces out there, but there are some new ones too. So if you don't know who I am, my name's Caleb Sirianni. I'm Assistant Engineer here at Palo Alto Networks. Been here for very close to 2 years now, working with Victorian customers in the commercial space. And like Chris mentioned, I'll take you through some of our latest hardware updates, as well as one of our newer subs, AIOps. So I might just grab my laser pointer here. I'm going to focus more on the additions in our PA400 series. And if you are an existing customer, you might already be familiar with this series, as well as the inclusion of one of our newer models, being the PA1400 series, which fits the gap nicely between the 400 and the 3400s. So with the PA1400, oh, sorry, that's my watch. With the PA1400s, we've introduced two new models, being the PA1410 and the PA1420. And as you can see, these are the successors of the 800 series, which some of you may have or may have had in the past. With that, there comes some significant upgrades, one of which being the performance. So you might be able to see that the 1400 series is roughly 5 times the performance of the PA 800s. And with that, when you do look at Palo Alto spec sheets and our performance statistics, for example, our threat prevention statistics here, we're giving you something that is sustained. And what I mean by sustained is that it's a predictable performance to you guys with all of our security subscriptions turned on. So if you are looking to turn on any other subscriptions that you don't currently have, you'll still be able to sustain this level of throughput. The other change that you can see within this platform is there is additional ports, which is great. So there's 10 additional ports in total, some of which being power over Ethernet ports. There's some multi-gig ports as well, and this also supports vSys. Something else that I think is worth calling out with the PA1400s is because they are a newer model, they actually ship with PenOS 11. So for you guys that aren't newer customers, a lot of my customers that I speak to today are currently on PenOS 10, which is our software version. But because these ship with 11, it is definitely worth you considering a software upgrade and planning that into your purchase as well. The other models that I wanted to discuss is the addition of 2 in our 400 series range. And if you are familiar with the 400 series, you'd know that these 4 down the bottom here, being the 410, 440, 450, and 460, were replacements for our 220s. If you ever had a 220 in the past, I'm sure you've been grateful to experience the speeds of the 400s. I've got a 220 at home still, and I'd absolutely love to have one of these instead. What we've done with this range is we've, as a company, listened to our customers, because there was quite a lot of good feedback around the 400 series, and they've fit many use cases. However, they didn't have any fiber ports. So the 415 and the 445 are very much similar in performance to the 415 with the 410 and the 445 with the 440. However, as you can see here on the right, we have the inclusion of fiber ports now, as well as power over Ethernet ports, which is great. So if you are looking in this sort of range of throughput and your port requirements need fiber, then you can look at the 415 and the 445. Again, something that is important to call out is it has 2 fiber ports, but only one of which for data, the other for management. Now, unfortunately, when new hardware comes out, we do have to say goodbye to our old friends. So I think it's important to make a note that the PA3200 series is actually going end of sale at the end of this month, so August. And the PA220, which we just spoke about before, was announced end of sale in January. But both of these devices, I should say, go end of life in 2028. Now, if you are ever looking at our firewalls and our spec sheets and anything like that, of course, you can speak to the team at Murdoch Webster Technology. You can speak to us here at Palo Alto as well. However, most of my customers often want to go out and do their own research as well, which is absolutely fine. So what I've done here is I've grabbed some snippets from our documentation just to give you an idea of what you can expect and maybe what you should be looking for when you are looking at our models. One of the first things that most people focus on is, can this device support the interface requirements that I have? And I think one of the best documentations that we have for that is our front panel docs. So I've linked them all here. You should get this presentation after, or if not, we can definitely send out the links. But you can look at the front panel and very clearly see in the doc, it'll go into detail what each of these ports are. If you want to compare models within a specific series, you could look at something such as our data sheet here. I've taken a snippet from our PA400 series data sheet, so you can start comparing models within that range. And something that a lot of our customers aren't aware of is that we have a product comparison page on our website as well. So if you're looking to compare the specs of the device that you're currently on, or maybe you're tossing between 2 models that are within different series, then you can go to our product comparison page, which is linked here, and it'll give you a nice PDF that you can start comparing the specs across each model. So it's great to have one of the best firewalls in the market, and we think that we are the best firewall. Hopefully you guys agree. However, a firewall, no matter which vendor it is only as good as how it's configured. And the features and the functions and the subscriptions that you buy with the firewalls are very much the same. They're only as good as you guys configure them. So a key statistic that I wanted to call out, and you can see it in the bottom left there, is that 99% of breaches actually occur due to misconfigurations. And dealing with those misconfigurations is a very reactive approach. Whether or not it results in a breach, or maybe it results in a network outage, as you can see here in the bottom right, I'm sure everyone here, including myself, does not want to be involved in either of those scenarios. So how can we transition from being reactive to more proactive about this? And this is where AIOps comes in. So again, if you're an existing customer, you may already be aware of AIOps, and I think that's great if you are, especially if you're using it. However, AIOps is a new subscription on the firewall, and what I'm going to take you through is 2 of many use cases that AIOps can help you with. One of which being best practices and dealing with those misconfigurations to, again, be more proactive. And the other one being able to actually predict your firewall health before those disruptions occur, so that we can try and avoid any network outages. So I'll start with security posture. I'm going to pick on my friend Mike here, so I'm apologizing in advance if there's any Michaels in the audience. Hopefully there's not. Mike today doesn't have AIOps in his environment, so he has some very typical questions, and you can see them there. He might be asking, how effective is his security investment? Or he really wants to ensure that his policies are in line with what we would consider best practices. Now, these questions are something that he might ask the Murdoch Webster team, they might ask us here. And today, without AIOps, he may have run what's called a best practice assessment. Hopefully some of you guys are familiar with what we would call a BPA here. If you're not, it's something where you download a file from the firewall and you'd upload it to a portal at Palo Alto Networks, and it would give you a nice report that outlines whether or not your policies, your profiles, your objects are in line with what we're considering best practice. And it was a really good report. However, anytime that you made a change after running that report, it kind of made the report outdated. It was a very point in time exercise. So any configuration changes beyond, you'd need to run a new report to see that reflected. How do we make that better? That's where AIOps comes into play. So instead of focusing on that reactive approach, now when you commit some configuration or you start making changes on your firewall, you can actually be alerted if there's something that's going to affect your security posture. And you can see that here on the right. So Mike now has made a profile and he has some alerts because he's opened up something that's risky to his environment. Because the alert has been raised as critical, it's also going to give him some extra information as well, such as recommendations. And you can see here there's some CLI commands so that he can actually resolve that alert on his own. I'll give you an example of where that might actually come into play. On the left here, again, this is a scenario without AIOps. Mike's actually just creating a URL filtering profile, but unfortunately, his organization has been targeted with a phishing web page. Now, the firewall itself is usually very good at blocking and recognizing this. However, let's just play with an example that it does get through, and fingers crossed it doesn't, but if it did, then Mike's employees might accidentally submit some credentials to that web page, and therefore the attackers have access to his crown jewels. So we all don't want that. With AIOps, if he configured this profile, and you can actually see here, he's forgotten to enable credential theft detection. Now, I might ask a question to the audience if it's okay. I can see some things coming up in the chat. Does anyone have credential theft detection enabled at the moment? Okay, if you don't, yeah, we've got a few yeses, that's good. So if you're not aware of what credential theft detection is, and I'm only calling this out because I've run several BPAs in the past, and a lot of the customers that I did run it with didn't actually have this enabled. This was something that I would call out to them. What it does is it recognizes if your users or your employees are submitting corporate credentials to a website that you haven't allowed them to be submitted to. So in the example where a phishing page has actually gotten through the firewall, if myself as a user will submit those credentials, it won't get to the attacker. So it's absolutely something that we'd want to have configured, and definitely something that I'd recommend to you. However, with this AIOps example, Mike's going to get alerted that he hasn't configured that profile correctly, and he will also get the remediation steps of how to do that. So then and there, he can be on top of his security posture, and it can stay in line with best practices. The other use case that I want to talk about is being able to actually resolve firewall disruptions before they occur. So again, on the left here, Mike has some very typical questions. He'd love to know the health of his network. If an issue was occurring, he'd really like to know what the root cause of it is, wouldn't we all? And the main use case here is he'd love to know before a disruption occurs if it's going to happen. So with AIOps, it can actually do that. We can raise an alert about your hardware, your software, if you're having any memory depletion or high processing activity. And again, you can get step-by-step recommendations to actually resolve that issue before it becomes a real problem. Now, if for some reason you can't resolve that on your own, you can raise a support ticket directly from AIOps itself. So to go into an example, we're just going to pick on Mike's organization again, but this time some good things potentially happening. There's some growth within the organization, and he's tasked with onboarding those users to the firewall. So as this is currently growing, he ends up onboarding a lot of people and packets start to drop. So that's going to affect his network. It slows it down, and he's now under quite a lot of pressure to bring that up to where it was before. So similar to what we were talking about, that's really reactive. Something's had to happen for him to start taking action. So how can we be proactive about it? Well, in the AIOps dashboard, one of its main tasks is actually to give you health of the firewall and to forecast if you are going to experience any issues. And you can see here, and hopefully when these slides are shared, you might get a clearer look at this, that we're actually projecting the CPU utilization to go quite high. Therefore, we're going to raise an alert to Mike in advance so that he can start taking some remediation steps before it happens to that, and therefore avoid a network disruption overall, which would be great. So I did see in the chat that some of you guys do have AIOps, which is great. I do want to call out that there is a free version available. So I would absolutely recommend all of you to at least enable the free version, start playing around with that. And you can start seeing those best practices and things that we spoke about today. I'm not going to go through every use case here just because we don't have time. However, you can see some of these use cases are available in a paid version. And if you do have any questions around that, by all means, you can speak to us here or the Murdoch Webster team as well, and we'd be happy to have a chat. With that, I will pass to Luke.
Hey, one quick question, Kieran.
Go for it.
You mentioned that the 3220s and the 220s are end of sale. Does that apply to the 5220 as well?
It probably does. Yes,
Yeah,
I'd assume so. And we have end of sale documentation. So if we want to send that out, just so that everyone has a very clear indication of the dates, we can do that.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. Great job, Caleb. Thank you. I will share my screen. Please tell me if you don't see my screen.
All good.
All good? Okay. That's over. All right, where's my mouse? Here we go. Cool. So, hey everyone. Like Caleb, I'm also a systems engineer here in Melbourne, and I've been at the company now for 4 years, and I've done a lot with Murdoch Webster. And again, I know some of you on the call, and hello.
Feels like longer, Luke.
Feels like yeah, true. That it's funny you say 17 years you've been around. Palo's now been around 15 years, which also is quite scary to think. But just on that, and you see on my screen here all these different subscriptions that we now have that we call now our cloud delivered security services. Way back then, when the firewall first came out, it was only threat prevention, which is crazy to think now when you've got other ones like AIOps that Caleb's just mentioned, plus all of these other ones. But today I'm here to talk specifically about our advanced subscriptions, which you see we have 3 of them: advanced threat prevention, advanced wildfire, and advanced URL. So look, on the surface, this may just look like Palo's slapping advanced in front of all our subscriptions and charging you more for it. Now that's of course not the truth. There is a lot more to that, but effectively the main reason we've added advanced variants of these subscriptions are the result of what we see in the cyber landscape and the trends around that. And if we look at our cyber landscape, and this is a fundamental truth that's been like this since the beginning and probably will continue to be the case, our attacker friends always have the first mover advantage. They have the element of surprise. And again, this asymmetry has always been there. There's always been the case. As defenders, we're always a little bit behind because the attackers can always surprise us with something new. But it feels like lately that asymmetry has widened. That gap has gotten quite a bit worse in terms of our ability to defend against new things that attackers throw at us all the time. And in the context of threat prevention or intrusion prevention, our traditional approach with dealing with this when some sort of new threat comes out is via a signature. And I've got a question for the chat. Hopefully someone can answer. Does anybody know how often we deliver threat prevention updates? Well, you guys answer. I'm just going to find where the Zoom chat is. Sorry. Here we go. Does anybody know? There's actually kind of multiple answers to this, but so for viruses specifically, the answer is 24 hours. And for applications and threats beyond that, it varies. And again, signatures have served us very well for this use case, and they will continue to do that. But the main issue with signatures is they rely on us having seen something in the wild in the first place so that we can create a signature around that particular threat so we can protect against it. And again, that's served us well. But now with zero-day attacks on the rise, with the attackers having access to all sorts of cloud-delivered computing so that they can create these attacks at will with access to things like ChatGPT or other large language models, where they can do things like take a piece of known malware and ask a large language model to change that malware so that it still has the same behavior, but is different enough to trip up a signature mechanism. We've created what I guess we'd call a barrier for entry issue where doing something malicious on the attacker's side is a lot easier than perhaps it was in the past, which then makes our job as defenders even harder. And to expand on this a little further and talk about some of the tools that our attacker friends have access to, Cobalt Strike being one of them, which I'll go into in a bit more detail. Tools like this are highly customizable. They're very automated. They're easy to use. And the main aim of these tools is to evade signature-based mechanisms like we see in most IPS, and for us, that's known as threat prevention. So how do we defend against that, and what do we do to stop it? And this is where I'm going to focus most of today on advanced threat prevention, which is, again, one of the advanced variants of threat prevention, which deals with things like viruses, exploits, vulnerabilities, command and control, as you see here. But just on that word command and control, I don't want to alienate anyone if they don't know what this definition is. I'm sure some of you may know what it is. Can anyone tell me in the chat? And again, I don't see this very well, but hopefully some of you know what command and control is. And Mearns, you feel free to chime in if you know or Caleb knows. I will explain it.
Sorry, mate. I lost the Zoom meeting as well.
I lost the chat, so I didn't see. But look, essentially, command and control, its main aim is, so once, where's my screen? There we go. Once a host has been infected with something within a network, the typical next stage beyond that is for that infected host to reach out to a command and control server, initially just to tell that server what is on its operating system, what version, what software, etc., what is installed. And then the attacker on the other end here then uses that same channel to then control this host to do bad things. For instance, move laterally within a network, or do reconnaissance and see what else is around, or even potentially if this host is the target, use this channel to then exfiltrate data out. Now, again, we've traditionally controlled command and control traffic via signatures with threat prevention. We call it anti-spyware. But again, this doesn't necessarily scale very well when you have tools like Cobalt Strike. So Cobalt Strike is actually a legitimate pen testing tool. It is a paid for tool. I went to try and buy it one day, but was surprised at how much it actually costs. But it is very well known for its flexibility and its ease of use. And in particular, it's very well known for its command and control capability, where it can, again, use some very sophisticated techniques to evade signature-based mechanisms. And unfortunately for us as defenders, Cobalt Strike, or its source code, was leaked about 3 or 4 years ago. So now we see Cobalt Strike used everywhere for all sorts of different things, but mostly command and control. And remember, the goal here of the attacker, beyond just doing general command and control, is they don't want to be detected. They don't want to be found out, because if they are found out, that ruins their whole kill chain and then stops their attack. And just to give you an idea of what it's like to actually create some sort of command and control channel, here is what we call a malleable C2 profile for Amazon, where effectively the attacker can load in a profile, here it's Amazon, so that C2 traffic can actually just look like someone's just shopping on Amazon. Again, all with the intent of evading a traditional signature-based mechanism. Just to show you some more, here are some other profiles that you can load into Cobalt Strike. We've got Amazon here, of course, Gmail, OneDrive, Pandora. Again, all this is very flexible, and you can create all of these on your own as well. And I've done it myself. It's not too hard. So it's not all doom and gloom. We do have an answer in advanced threat prevention, and I'm going to show you now a demo of this. So hopefully this all loads for me. Do you guys see my firewall screen?
Yeah, mate, you got it.
Good. Okay, so for my demo, I have a next generation firewall. This is just a virtual run. It is running PanOS 11.0. I don't recommend you guys go straight to that right away. However, you do see that I've got advanced threat prevention loaded here, okay? Just a quick note as well, advanced threat prevention includes all of what threat prevention does as well. So you don't need to buy 2 subscriptions. It's one or the other, but advanced does include threat as well. And if we go over to our security profile section, where I've configured an anti-spyware profile, you can see a new menu option, which may not be familiar to some of you that haven't seen this, but effectively all I've done to enable this is a little checkbox to say, yep, I want my cloud inline analysis enabled, and that gives me access to all of these fancy different command and control detection mechanisms. Okay, so how can we prove, and what does this actually look like in terms of a threat that might be thrown at the firewall? And in order to do that, unfortunately, I don't have Cobalt Strike. As I said, it's quite expensive, but I do have access to a packet capture of an example of what this actually looks like on the wire. And for all my Wireshark nerds out there, this is actually what the URL would look like on the wire for what is actually command and control commands going back and forth between an infected host and a server. This just looks like someone's going on Amazon and shopping for books. But as we know, that isn't the case. So what I can do to highlight this now to show you how the firewall would respond is I have this packet capture. I'm now going to hit play here and send it towards the firewall so that we can see how the firewall will actually respond or interpret this type of traffic. And the scary thing is here, if we look at just general traffic logs and we zoom in a little bit, this just looks like normal web browsing. Okay, so traditional app ID or layer 7 application control is completely fooled by this. It does legitimately look the same as any other normal web browsing session would. Likewise, if I go to URL filtering, same deal. This just looks like someone's going shopping. Again, with that URL that we now know is not quite doing what it looks like, at least on the surface. But where it gets cool is if we look at the threat logs. So within threat logs, we've been able to detect this using advanced threat prevention, which is not relying on signatures at all. It is actually relying on a cloud-delivered engine that has been able to stop this and block it in real time. So what's occurred is the firewall has seen some traffic that is quite suspicious. It's sent it up to a cloud service to be analyzed, and I'm happy to say that that cloud service has got presence in Australia, so there's no latency concerns here. And using that cloud service that uses AI and ML, and of course it wouldn't be a vendor presentation if I didn't mention that at least once, we've been able to detect that traffic using those techniques as opposed to relying on a signature, which, as we know, there's a delta in time there for when that signature can arrive. So instead here, we're looking at behavior instead, and we're surfacing this issue and blocking it for you. Any questions on that? Anything in the chat before I go back to the last few slides? It's all good. All right, I'll continue on. So just to recover that, or just to go back over it again. So this is what advanced threat prevention looks like. And again, there is advanced URL and advanced wildfire too, which all have the same sort of trend, but they all involve some sort of extra cloud delivered service so that we can stay ahead of these attacks that, as I mentioned, just keep coming at us every single day. And it's only getting easier to take something that is known and change it to something unknown, which is what this whole subscription and what these advanced subs are aimed at stopping. And what you just saw there was me stopping a command and control attempt using Cobalt Strike traffic. And just to go back to my first slide, so Caleb's done an excellent job of explaining to you what hardware we now have available. But in a world where a lot of us are working from home, like myself today, and I imagine a lot of you, in a world where applications and data and branch sites are using things like SD-WAN, apps, data users, devices are everywhere. So relying on a hardware firewall, perhaps in a data center, doesn't necessarily scale with the modern day network. So the great thing here is all of these security subscriptions that you see on your screen can be consumed in any way that you think, or any way that would align to your business needs. And that includes, of course, SASE or Secure Access Service Edge. So being able to deliver this security capability as a cloud service for your remote users and your branch sites is obviously very beneficial, because it does allow you to have a very consistent security enforcement mechanism that is there, irrespective of where your users are and where they're going to. Likewise with devices, apps, and data as well.
Now, there is a question in the chat, Luke. There's what's the difference between that and the botnet window besides real time?
Botnet window. That's a good one. I don't actually know the answer. I knew Greg would ask me something like that. Can one of you guys note that down, and I will respond to Greg on that. It effectively, look like, as I mentioned, it's threat prevention kind of on steroids. It's got the added cloud delivered analysis component, which is aimed at stopping very new variants of malware, exploits, and even and command and control or spyware, as you just saw. The botnet one, I'm not sure on, Greg, so I'll get back to you on that. But thank you for asking a question. Anything else that you want me to cover, guys, or any other questions?
I think we're pretty good. Is that your stuff done? Look, I was just going to call out one thing. I mentioned at the very start that, we partner with Palo Alto Networks because of the innovative approach, always being on the front foot. And I remember way back in the early days, a guy called Mark McLaughlin, who was the first CEO and chairman of Palo Alto Networks, mentioned that you have to bring software to a software fight. And what he meant by that was that attackers are no longer sitting in a basement with a hoodie on, attacking individual organizations, and a human on the other end can see it and stop it. Attackers are using the power of the cloud, like we all are, to be able to put loads of attacks out at once. And unless you have the ability to bring software to a software fight, you're always going to be one step behind. You can't be relying on signatures. Back in the day, relying on signatures, like you said, you had a human making those signatures and pushing them out to the firewalls. Attackers are using software. I think this is just showing, how far in front Palo Alto have now become by using the inline cloud and using software to detect things that maybe they've never seen before to fight the software that's being used to attack them. So I think this is a massive leap forward with the advanced subs, which is just, again, testament to the fact of how innovative Palo Alto Networks are.
Yep, spot on. Got to fight machines with machines. Exactly right.
Machines with machines. I like that one better.
Yeah,
more
like
a Terminator.
Yeah, we can borrow our phrases.
Yeah.
All right, I'll jump to the next slide.
All right, cool. This is me. So I know that some on the call have done an ultimate test drive before, and I know that they've done them with, Prisma SASE and on the next gen platforms. I think we have got one now, Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, but one that's specifically assigned to the cloud delivered security services, which basically allows you to get your hands on the technology, actually see traffic come through, run through some guided steps. And you can do it in our office, we can do it in the Palo Alto Networks office, but it's something that's definitely worth having a go at if you haven't seen the advanced subscriptions or even the new platforms before, or the other products that Palo Alto have, with the security operations with Cortex, Prisma SASE, Prisma Cloud. So what we will do with this, and Leanne, Paul, again, correct me if I'm wrong, we will send out details for one of these. We'll send out a link that we can sign up on and get one of these organized so that you can come in and have a crack.
Cool. Any other questions while we're still here? Caleb and I are happy. We've still got time.
I guess one other thing I'll say, if no one's got a question, was, Caleb mentioned credential theft. Not every, because Greg's on the call, and when we did a BPA for Greg, he had the credential theft, I think, enabled. But it's so easy to do, and it's such a simple process to be able to stop your users entering credentials into, phishing websites. It's real easy. If you need help, if you haven't got it done, just reach out to us. We can guide you through it. We can get it done for you. But it's just, one thing that's going to help increase your security posture. That's real easy to do.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, everyone. If we don't have any other questions, I think we will say thank you very much for your time, giving up some time in your day to join us on this Hear from an Expert. We try to make these sessions relevant and informative, so we certainly welcome your feedback. I'm sure Paul from marketing will send out a little questionnaire for feedback, so please let us know what you think, and we'll see you next time.